What if the future of an entire neighborhood was about to be signed away, and the only person who could save everyone was someone no one in the room even noticed? Today on Black Inside 2.0, we bring you a story of courage, truth, and the power of one unexpected voice. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Black Inside 2.0, where real stories come alive. In the heart of a growing city stood a peaceful neighborhood known as Riverstone Heights. Families walked their dogs under the shade of tall oaks, children played in shared gardens, and neighbors greeted each other like old friends. It was the kind of community where people believed they were safe from hidden agendas or complicated conflicts. And for years, the Homeowners Association, the HOA, had been stable, predictable, even comforting. Meetings were calm, decisions were fair, and changes happened slowly and openly. That was before a new developer arrived, a polished, confident man named Mr. Harrington, known for his elegant suits and even more elegant promises. He claimed he wanted to elevate the neighborhood, to bring new value, and to secure the future of the families living here. People liked the sound of that. They trusted it. After all, he had the charm, the smile, and the confidence of someone who seemed to know exactly what he was doing. But what the residents didn't know, what none of them could have imagined, was that his vision of securing the future carried conditions no one had been allowed to see. Conditions that would quietly shift control of Riverstone Heights, away from the people who lived there. And the truth might have stayed hidden forever if it weren't for the courage of someone who wasn't even a resident. Someone no one expected to speak. Someone they barely even noticed. A young waitress named Maya. It was a bright morning when the HOA called an emergency meeting at the top floor of a downtown building. The conference room was large, with walls of glass revealing the city skyline. It was meant to look inviting, open, honest, but the air carried tension. Residents had been told this meeting was to finalize a new development agreement. They believed it was just a routine vote, something simple, something beneficial, but not a single person had been allowed to read the full contract. When the residents arrived, they were greeted by an unfamiliar sight: professional staff, security by the elevators, and a long conference table already set with glasses and place cards. It felt more like a corporate negotiation than a community meeting. At the edge of the room stood Maya, the young waitress hired for the day to serve drinks and pastries. She wore a crisp uniform and carried a nervous calmness in her expression. No one noticed her except to ask for water or tea, but she noticed everything. Just before the meeting began, a man in a dark suit arrived with his daughter, a young girl in a red hoodie and backpack named Lena. She had come straight from school at her father's request. Some residents whispered, some smiled politely, some questioned why a child was present. But Lena's father had a reason. He had been uneasy about the new contract. Something about it felt off. But every time he tried to ask questions, he was given half answers, deflections, or promises that everything is fine. So he brought someone who could see things clearly, someone who wouldn't be intimidated, someone who might ask a question adults were too embarrassed to ask. Lena walked to the table with curious eyes, scanning the papers neatly arranged before each seat. Something about the long paragraphs and small print pulled her attention immediately. When Mr. Harrington entered the room, the atmosphere shifted. He smiled. He thanked everyone for attending. He made friendly remarks that eased the tension. "I promise," he said, "this contract is the beginning of a brighter future for all of us." He spoke with such confidence that several residents relaxed. Some nodded, some began recording on their phones. Everything seemed polished, everything seemed perfect, everything seemed planned. But Maya, quiet, observant Maya, sensed something else. There was a hurried energy to the staff. The contract pages had been placed upside down on purpose. And when Harrington spoke about transparency, he kept his hand firmly on the stack of agreements, as though preventing anyone from flipping through them. Maya moved silently between tables, refilling glasses. She listened carefully. She watched. She noticed when Harrington whispered instructions in a language most people in the room didn't understand. Most people, but not Maya. Maya grew up speaking two languages, one at home, one at school. And she knew exactly what Harrington whispered to his assistant, thinking no one understood. "Make sure they don't read page 7. That's where control shifts." Maya froze. Her heart pounded. Page 7, control. She didn't fully understand what the contract said, but she understood enough to recognize that something was very wrong. But she was only a waitress. A quiet worker, someone hired temporarily. Would anyone even listen to her? Her hands trembled as she set down a tray. She didn't know what to do, not yet. While Harrington continued his speech, Lena leaned closer to the document. Something caught her eye, a section printed in extremely small font. Smaller than anything else on the page. She raised her hand, her voice was soft, but clear. Why is this part printed so tiny? The room went silent, residents turned, Harrington paused. He gave a polished smile and answered, "It's just legal language, nothing important." But Lena wasn't convinced. "It looks like it's hiding something," she said. Her father gently placed a hand on her shoulder, not to stop her, but to give her strength. Harrington's smile flickered, just for a moment. Maya's pulse quickened, she couldn't stay silent anymore. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear tightening in her chest. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "but I think it is important." The entire room turned toward her. For the first time since entering, Harrington looked genuinely surprised. She continued, "I overheard something a moment ago. Something about page 7, about control shifting." Gasps spread across the room. Residents exchanged confused, anxious looks. Harrington's expression stiffened. "That is a misunderstanding," he said calmly. She must have misheard, but Maya didn't back down. "I didn't mishear," she said. "You spoke in another language. But I understand it. You said not to let anyone read that page." Lena's father immediately reached for the contract. He flipped to page 7. And suddenly, everything became clear. Page 7 was unlike the rest of the contract. It wasn't about improvements. It wasn't about renovations. It detailed a shift of decision-making authority, transferring full control of the HOA to Harrington's development company for an undefined period. The residents wouldn't just lose voting power. They would lose autonomy. They would lose the ability to protect their own homes. When the room erupted in concerned voices, Harrington raised his hands to calm them. "This is being taken out of context," he insisted. "It's standard procedure," but it was too late. The illusion had shattered. The residents quickly flipped through the rest of the pages. More small print sections appeared, fees, restrictions, limitations, obligations that would quietly reshape their lives. Behind all the charm and confidence, the document was a blueprint for control. And it might have been signed without question, if not for two quiet voices, Lena and Maya. Lena's father stood tall, the contract in hand. "We deserve time to read every word," he said firmly. "This meeting cannot continue until everyone understands what they're signing." Residents nodded in agreement. Some stood, some protested politely, some simply walked away from the table in disbelief. Harrington realized he had lost the room. But what surprised everyone, even Maya, was when Lena, still holding her father's hand, turned to her with a grateful smile. "Thank you for speaking up," she said. "You saved us." Maya felt warmth rise in her chest. She had entered the room invisible, unnoticed. But now, she felt seen, not because she demanded attention, but because she chose truth over silence. The HOA postponed the signing indefinitely. A committee was formed to review the contract in detail. Legal advisors were brought in. Transparency was restored. Residents returned to Riverstone Heights believing in something they had forgotten. Community doesn't come from rules. It comes from people who care enough to protect it. Harrington eventually withdrew his proposal. Without secrecy, it lost its power. And the neighborhood learned an unforgettable lesson, not about danger, but about courage. Sometimes the hero isn't the loudest person in the room. Sometimes the hero is the one no one thought had a voice at all. A week later, the HOA invited Maya to a community gathering. They thanked her, they gifted her a small plaque of appreciation, and they told her she had a forever place in their story. Lena hugged her tightly and whispered, "We won because you were brave." Maya smiled, not in pride, but in relief. She had done the right thing. She had protected a neighborhood she didn't even live in. She had changed the outcome of a decision that would have affected hundreds of families. All because she listened, all because she cared, all because she spoke up. And that simple act became a story remembered for years, the story of the day the neighborhood was saved by a waitress and a girl in a red hoodie. A reminder that courage doesn't need a title, it just needs a heart. Thank you for watching Black Inside 2.0, where real stories find real meaning. If you enjoyed today's emotional HOA story, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. More powerful stories are coming soon, and you won't want to miss them.